So I've never written a line of code in my life, but I'm slowly starting to realize or at least admit to myself that if I'm to build the kind of systems that I'm imagining, then I might have to. So I've been trying to learn a few things about how to implement this open source ERP system called ERP Next for work because it will help us to manage all our clients and streamline our operations to a very large extent. But it's open source, which is a good thing, but also means that if I'm to customize it deeply, I'll need to learn code. I don't have a choice. Unless I have the money to spend on developers, which we don't right now, not at the moment. Now, the problem is not that I can't learn how to code. The problem is the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to realize that maybe I've been putting it off and I've been trying to dance around it because it finally looks like the kind of thing that will challenge the identity I have in my head or the perception of myself I have as the kind of person who can figure things out. Because I've learned like three languages which were not very easy to do because I spoke none of them before I was 20, and very many other things that I felt like were hard enough for me to develop that identity and see myself in that way. But what if this is the kind of thing that ends that, that challenges that, and that's where the story of me as the kind of person who figures things out ends? What if this is it? But as I think of that, I've also been wrestling with the idea of how upper limits or limitations can be based on what you know about yourself. But isn't it better if you actually discovered what your limitations are by testing the assumptions you have about yourself? So if this thing that you need to do means that you have to be a level of fitness that you've never been in, or you imagine that you're not smart enough for this or that thing, or maybe you're so smart that you think that this new thing that is on the way to you achieving your goals and dreams is beneath you, then maybe you trying to put yourself through that thing is exactly what you need to test the assumption you have of yourself. Because if you discover that you're right to begin with, then it changes nothing. But you might actually discover that you are wrong. And that's where the growth comes from, at least in my opinion. So as I was thinking about this, I had a few ideas about how I could make it easier for myself to not just start doing what I know I should do, but to also maybe help me commit to this thing for the foreseeable future so that I can either get the results that I want or at least test the assumption and then know that I have no business trying to do this. And the first thing is to be very clear on the identity or identities being challenged. So make it very explicit and write it down if you can what identities you're going to be trying to step out of. So do you think you're too fast? Do you think you're too slow? What notions, what assumptions do you have about yourself regarding this thing? When you write them down, this helps you to limit how much that or those assumptions can sabotage you unknowingly as you try to learn or do this thing that you're trying to get into. And then the next thing is maybe predetermine an incompetence window for which in which you will allow yourself to be comfortable not knowing, to be comfortable being a beginner, where if you commit for that period of time, then On the other side of that window, if it's 3 months, if it's 6 months, if it's 1 year, you will be able to have collected enough data to tell you if really this thing is not for you or you really can't do this thing. But predetermine that time before you even start, before you even lift a finger, because once you start and then you start to make a decision like this, it might you just being uncomfortable with, or just you trying to avoid the discomfort of learning something new and not knowing exactly what you're doing. And so after deciding that window, the incompetence window, then try to do that thing for at least that predetermined time and have this as the test of the maximum limit of your abilities, or the ceiling, if you may. So then you can be able to collect enough data, and then at that point in time you'll have enough to tell you if you really were justified to think the way you did about yourself and hold those assumptions that you did, or maybe you'll debunk those assumptions and they'll become myths, and then you'll be on your way to achieving the goals that you set out to achieve by following this path. So before you go, think about this. Do you really know how much you need to know about this thing to solve the problems that you currently have? Now, I know it's difficult to know what level of competence you need to attain, maybe to be able to solve the problems that you have, to be able to move a step forward. And so if you can't know that because you don't know enough about this thing, you have AI. You could talk to ChatGPT and maybe get a few ideas about how much is enough. And maybe you have some friends who are in that field or something related. You could talk to them and ask them what they think, and maybe, listen to what they have to say. But I believe that most of the time, and this is becoming clearer as I think about my ERP Next implementation, right? Most of the upper limits that we have and are usually way past the level of competence that we need to solve the problems we currently have. So to move a step forward, because I know that I don't need to be a master coder to implement this system. I just need to have some functional competence. And so find out what level of the skill ladder you need to get to be able to move you forward from the point you're at. And 9 times out of 10, that upper limit is a making of your imagination, but also it's way beyond the scope of what you need to learn, or as far, or the much that you need to know to get going. So see you on the next one. Bye.